Greetings guys, gals, non-binary pals, and welcome back to another video. Over the past few years, and especially the last year in particular, trad wives have taken off. They have become such a massive thing, especially in places such as TikTok, where they are just uploading so much content, promoting this very idealistic lifestyle where they have so much time that all they do is like cook food from scratch for their families, and they stay home, and most of them are very wealthy. So the way they advertise this lifestyle is through a very wealthy lens. Over the past few years, and especially the last year in particular, trad wives have taken off. They have become such a mass, and it is incredibly popular, worryingly popular. And that is especially true for this woman who goes by Ballerina Farm. Now, Ballerina Farms is the most followed trad wife on the internet. She has 9 million Instagram followers, 7.5 million TikTok followers, and 1.5 million subscribers on YouTube. And it's so funny because I've been contemplating making a video about Ballerina Farms for so long and just hadn't gotten around to it. And the other day I woke up and I was like, I think I'm gonna finally make my Ballerina Farms video. I log on to TikTok to go look at some content, and I saw that she did an article with The Times. And I was like, well, isn't that great timing? And then I went and looked at the article, and oh my God. Oh my God. This article broke my heart. I've seen so many people talk about it on social media over the past few days, on TikTok, on Twitter especially, and it is like so soul destroying, and we really need to talk about it because this is a woman who has a platform that goes out to millions of people. There are millions of people who idolize her, who just love and adore this life that she has built and that she is promoting online. But a majority of what is posted online obviously does not reflect reality, and this is incredibly true when it comes to her. Most of her videos are of her cooking. She's making bread from scratch. She's making like big meals for her family while her kids, she has 8 kids, all running around her. She's like looking after her kids while she's cooking. Sometimes she goes out and she like milks her cows. She goes and harvests her veggies to cook with, and that's a majority of what her content is. It's just like simple life living because they live on a farm and they have like a very like rustic sort of house, and people really like that simple life, you know? So that is what she's posting on the internet. That is what people are seeing. That is what people are wishing for themselves. But it is not what she was wishing for herself. Before we get into what I mean by that and talking about the article, which is a really brilliant article, I do recommend reading it if you have the means to, I want to show you this TikTok that went viral recently that I think really says a lot for itself without even talking about anything else. And you may have seen people talking about this on Twitter and on TikTok. I've seen multiple people reference this in the past few days, but this is her husband giving her birthday present, her only birthday present.
It was my birthday present from Daniel. Hoping their tickets to Greece.
Where's it from?
I don't know, the boys took it off.
I took it off.
It's from Ukraine.
So, plane tickets? Ooh, a hat I can wear in Greece.
That's not a hat.
It's not.
Oh, my egg apron!
Eggs in it.
It's great. Then you can gather eggs.
So cute. It's really cute. It's a cute one.
That's the best. You're welcome.
Thanks, honey.
Not for a long time.
The rage I feel in my body when I watch this TikTok. The way she looked so hopeful and then so disappointed And him saying, "You're welcome," before she said thank you, and that forced thank you at the end, everything about this made me just want to grab her hand and run away with her, you know? And like, I know you might be thinking like, asking for tickets to Greece is like a big thing. That seems like a pretty big thing to be asking of your partner. I think, you know, you should be happy with whatever they get. Maybe he can only afford an apron and like, she was asking for too much. No. He is the heir to a multi-billion-dollar company. He has a net worth of over $500 million. And you know the company that he is an heir to? JetBlue. His family owns an airline. They own an airline. And he got her a fucking egg apron. An apron for her to go out and do work in. That is the present a multi-millionaire, one day billionaire, got for his wife, who has done nothing but look after him and raise their 8 children. And 8. So yeah, this really, I think, says more than enough about their entire relationship. I really don't even have to say anything more. I could end this video here and you would all absolutely get the point and be like, yeah, fuck this guy. I would support her in any crimes that she commits, you know? Like, I support women's rights and wrongs, and that's for her. Bury the body, I will help you. You know, like, I don't even need to go any further, but I will, because I feel like we need some backstory to this. We need to know a little bit more about her, about their relationship, and how we got to this point. Because, you know, like I said, like, she uploads just a bunch of happy videos of her just doing work and like cooking and cleaning, and it seems like a nice, lovely, little peaceful life that millions of people really would love to live and look to and are like, wow, this looks like such a wonderful life. And it shows how much really we don't know and how much people don't realize is like not okay. So we are going to now have a little bit of a look at this article and a talk about how we got here. Starting with the reason that her account is called Ballerina Farm, and where that came from is that as a child, Hannah, that is her name, she dreamed of being a ballerina. She loved ballet. She was a fantastic ballerina. That was what she was going to do with her life. She danced as a kid. At 14, she started going to Juilliard for summer programs, which is incredible. And then she spent her teen years competing in pageants to win money and also potentially win a scholarship for Juilliard. And then when she was 17, she was accepted into Juilliard and moved to New York to go start living that dream that she had had her entire life. And I would like you to keep in mind that they only accept, I think, like 12 or so women and 12 or so men into this degree every year. Like, it is so incredibly hard to get into. It is not something that you just like do. It takes your entire life dedicated to ballet to be able to be accepted into this. And it is all she ever wanted. And she got it when she was 17. After a few years of living her dream at Juilliard, doing her ballet, she was 21. And this man, Daniel, who becomes her husband, met her. And he is 23 at this time. And he decided on the spot that he wanted to marry her. Now, this comes down to partially because she was raised a Mormon and she is a practicing Mormon, and he is also a Mormon. So obviously that is a very important thing for Mormons to have, you know, is they have to have like same faith marriage. You have to marry within the church. So he met this beautiful woman who was a Mormon and was like, that one. I want that one. And so he started trying to pursue her. He started asking her out on dates and was trying to go out with her, but she turned him down consistently for 6 months. He was trying his best to talk her into a date, and she rejected him time and time over. After 6 months, you know, they were still friends. They like talked sometimes. She told him that she was gonna get a flight from Salt Lake City back to New York to go back to Juilliard. And then she is going to the airport. She's getting on this plane, and who's there? Oh, it's Daniel. What a coincidence. Oh, and their seats are right next to each other. That's such a coincidence. How funny. And they got to talking on the plane for 5 hours, where she, you know, cannot leave. She has sat in this seat on a plane next to this man that she has spent 6 months rejecting for 5 hours, and she can't say no. She can't walk away. She can't go anywhere. And it's so fucked up because that obviously was not a coincidence. I told you earlier, his family own airlines. He found out what flight she was on and then pulled some strings and made some calls and booked a ticket for the seat next to her, specifically for the purpose of cornering her and like talking her into going out with him. Oh my God. Oh my God. That is just so creepy. It's so creepy. You corner someone into a position where they literally can't get away, and you talk to them for 5 hours until they agree to going out with you. He calls that their first date. They now both call it their first date. And so after that, they were talking about dating, because that's apparently what they're doing now. And he wants to get married because he's Mormon. You know, they have to get married literally immediately because otherwise they can't have sex. And what's the point, you know? But anyway, she told him she did not want to get married for a year. She wanted to date for a year before she got married. And he straight up was just like, no, that's not going to work. We have to get married right now. And so 3 months later, they were married. And then 3 months after that, she became the first Juilliard underground to be pregnant. And because of this, and because they were married, and now she is pregnant with his child, he's in control of everything, right? So what does he do? He goes and gets a job in South America, in Brazil, and he picks up and moves them all there. She had to leave Juilliard. The thing she had been dreaming of her entire life, the only thing she ever wanted, and he forced her to up and leave. Everything behind. Her dream, her family, her friend, everything she had to leave behind and move to Rio with this man she was effectively forced into marrying. And while they were there, they had 2 more children before they moved back to the States and got a farm in Utah. The way that, you know, like people will like to say, you know, she chose to get married. She did say yes. I don't count any of these decisions as decisions that she made. She was cornered into their first date, which, you know, is fucking scary enough. And then the level of manipulation, I'm sure, absolutely went into getting that proposal. And then obviously pregnancy, like you can't do anything. And as a Mormon as well, like you are tied to this. You cannot leave. She gave up everything. And then they moved to a farm in Utah. And she said in this interview that this relationship, this marriage, took sacrifices from both of them. And I am going to quote this paragraph from the interview. Our first few years of marriage were really hard. We sacrificed a lot, she says. But we did have this vision, this dream, and Daniel interrupts. We still do. What kind of sacrifices? I ask her. Well, I gave up dance, which was hard. You give up a piece of yourself. And Daniel gave up his career ambitions. And this makes me so sad and so angry because he didn't give up anything. He just made it kind of seem like he did. He obviously said to her, well, I'm giving up my career ambitions. So you can give up dance. You can give up a literal piece of yourself and something you've spent your entire life dedicated to you, the only dream you've ever had. You can give that up for me because I'm giving up my career ambitions. When literally 5 minutes ago, They were asked, was this always the dream? And he said, yes. He didn't lose anything. He's still the heir to a multi-billion-dollar company. He's still worth $500 million. He has his wife to cook for him, to look after his kids. He has a wife to just constantly pump out babies while he just does whatever the fuck he wants. Of course he got what he wanted. He sacrificed nothing. And the fact that he has managed to convince her that he has sacrificed things, I want to tear his head from his body. I am just like filled with so much pain and anger and like am on the brink of tears right now because I hurt for her so much. I didn't mention, she's 34 now. So it has been 12, 13 years of this marriage and this has been her life. And that's just the beginning, obviously. That was just the first few years. She obviously loves dance, right? That's all she ever wanted to do. And she had to give that up once she had, a couple of kids. And when they moved to Utah, she had a shed turned into a dance studio for her. So she still had somewhere to practice that passion. She still had somewhere that was purely for her, where she could have her own space and time for herself to do something that she loved to do. You know what it is now? It's where her kids do school. They turned the one place that was hers alone, the one place where she got to do what she loved, into something that is not even remotely hers. It is a place where her children do classes. She lost her only space and just kind of goes along with it, And it's not like they can't afford to build another studio. It's not like they can't afford to give her another space. But he won't. And you know what else he won't do? He won't let them have any childcare. He will not let her have help with any childcare at all. She obviously does all the cooking. She does a lot of the farming as well because they do have a business where they sell meat and like candles and dairy and eggs and things. So she helps out with that. She's also cooking everything. She is also looking after 8 children and is pregnant pretty much constantly. She competes in beauty pageants as well. We will talk about that a little bit later on. Her husband, Daniel, did allow a cleaner to come in, so at least she doesn't have to clean. However, she is so exhausted that sometimes she just collapses and she cannot get up. She runs herself absolutely ragged to the point of collapse. And Daniel has the audacity to say that he wishes she was home more, that she spent more time with the kids. I don't know what you fucking expect from her, bro. She's doing literally everything. And he's still like, yeah, I'm not 100% satisfied in our marriage because she doesn't spend enough time like in the house with our kids, but I'll allow it. And it's like the thing she's doing that he's not okay with is that she's working on their business because he's not doing enough for it. This man so obviously does not give a single fuck about any of her boundaries. He doesn't care at all. He runs everything and he views her as his property, as something that he can manipulate and get to do whatever he wants. And you see this in a lot of ways through obviously immediately not caring about what she wanted for marriage at all and just being like, no, we are getting married right now or else. The fact he made her give up all of her dreams because they didn't fit what he saw as a life for himself. The fact that he pushes her to work so hard that she collapses. And the fact that in this interview, he calls himself trad dad and her trad wife, which I think speaks absolute volumes. He's not a husband. He's a dad. She's a mother, but she is a wife first. Her duties are to him. He also spends so much of this interview just interrupting her and speaking over her and answering for her. He wasn't actually meant to be a part of this interview. He was not invited to this. This was an interview with Hannah. That was the point of this. It was supposed to be a one-on-one interview between the interviewer and Hannah. But Daniel just came in and he was sitting next to her and he was there for the entire thing, pretty much. When questions were directed at Hannah, a lot of the time, he would interrupt. He would answer the question. You would get times where the interviewer like specified specifically, she was making eye contact with Hannah and would ask a question and Daniel would answer it. And then you get times when Hannah is asked a question and she looks at her husband and asks, how do we feel about this? Because she doesn't want to give an answer that may potentially not be one that he wants to hear. And there's such a horrible, like, fear in that, you know? Like, the fact that she is afraid to give the wrong answer, the fact she is afraid to have her own voice, the fact that she has obviously not been allowed to have her own voice is so heartbreaking and so upsetting. Like, at some point she was asked whether being politicized online or receiving hate comments impacted her. And she said that she doesn't let it bother her because Daniel told her not to let it bother her. And so the interviewer asks, it doesn't have an impact at all? I mean, it does. I'll hear things and it's no fun. Like, she pauses, looking up at Daniel, who is now standing behind her. What do you think upsets us the most? She asks him. For whatever reason, I'm kind of numb to it, he says. So I feel like that says, once again, a lot there. She couldn't answer how she felt herself. She had to ask her husband how she felt, and he completely disregarded her in that statement at all. How do we feel? How does this impact us? And he just straight up answers like, I'm fine. Great, that wasn't the question, was it? This actually isn't about you. She was asking a question about how you both felt. This was like a collective thing, which I don't think she should have had to ask at all, but she was obviously afraid of saying the wrong answer or stepping on her husband's toes. And then he couldn't even muster up an answer that spoke for both of them. He just completely disregarded her and pretended her feelings didn't even exist because it doesn't bother him. So it's totally fine. This question here followed a paragraph that left me so horrified. I don't know how I hadn't heard of this occurring, but one of the things that sparked major controversy around them was that one time Hannah had said that Daniel drop kicked a cockerel across the yard after it attacked one of her children. He drop kicked a cockerel. Like, he threw this animal up and kicked it. You don't fucking do that. Oh my God. That's so scary. And I know that these people like don't view these animals as living things. Like, they're farmers. They kill these animals for food. But there is something like, there's something that's like that extra step more fucked up of like quite literally just like not even blinking, not even giving a fuck, like drop kicking an animal. And the way you treat animals is obviously, I think, a very good reflection on how you treat people. And if you are that easily able to do something like that, that is one of the biggest red flags. Like, yes, it's not okay that your cockerel attacked your child. However, I don't think they're very easy to train. I think that we should maybe be keeping our small children away from animals that have the potential to attack them. That feels like the real safe thing to do here. It's not really the chicken's fault, so it doesn't really deserve to be punished for that, because it didn't really do anything against it. It was just following its instincts. Don't drop kick animals. Holy shit, obviously that's gonna lead to backlash. That's so unbelievably fucked up. So as I said, this interview was meant to be just one-on-one between Hannah and this interviewer. They promised that it was going to happen. They said it was going to happen. They were going to get one-on-one time, but they didn't, except for this one time when Daniel had to go take a phone call. So she was talking about how she gives birth to her children at home. She has home births and they're completely natural. So she doesn't take any pain medication or anything at all, except for she has had 2 children in the hospital. And for one of these births, her husband was absent because he had to take a shipment back at the farm, so he wasn't there. And this baby was 2 weeks overdue and was 10 pounds, and she was in a lot of pain. And so since Daniel wasn't there, she got an epidural. And when she told this to the interviewer, she had to whisper it out of fear that Daniel would overhear her admitting this. And my blood boils over this. The fact that she was in so much pain and she still had to whisper about the fact that she took medication for it because her husband would get mad at her. I don't know what the punishment would be. I don't know what would happen if he overheard this. I don't know what would happen if he read this article. But she clearly didn't feel safe enough for him to hear that. She clearly has hidden that from him. And like, I don't understand why you would force your wife to go through something that traumatizing and that painful when you don't have to. The fact she only had the opportunity to take that epidural one time purely only because her husband wasn't there to stop her, it's devastating. It's devastating. I'm glad she was able to do it, especially with this child who seemed to be one of her hardest births that she had to go through. And I'm glad that that was something she was able to do. And I'm glad he wasn't fucking at the birth for it. But the fact that that is something he has a say in, and the fact that he stops her from doing or else, is horrifying. And it also makes me question a lot of other decisions that happen in their household. Like, they talk about how they are anti-medicine. They are pro, natural medicine. They don't like pharmaceuticals. I haven't read if they're anti-vax, but based on that, I'm assuming that they are. So I imagine that the not being allowed the epidural or the pain meds comes from the being against medicine, which to me implies that she herself is not against medicine, or maybe she is fine with medicine in just like extreme circumstances, but he is. So he is once again enforcing a rule that she doesn't necessarily agree with, but she has to go along with and live under these strict rules that he has, because he does not give a single fuck about what she cares about or what her values are or what she wants or how she is feeling. He doesn't care. And, obviously in relationship dynamics like this, which are emotionally abusive, that is what this is. This is all just manipulation and emotional abuse. I don't know if physical abuse happens. That's not something that was shared. Obviously, she's not going to share that while she is still in this relationship. If that is something that exists, I wouldn't be surprised, but I can't comment on it. Overall, doesn't really matter. This relationship is abusive. And another way that that is demonstrated in very, very, you say that you were trapped in abusive relationships. That's what it is. You were trapped in them. And she is trapped in it. And that is even true in the physical sense, in which I would like to once again reiterate that this man has hundreds of millions of dollars and is heir to a multi-billion-dollar company. I just need to really hammer that home for a second here and say they have one car. I don't know if this has changed, but at some point they have one car, and he will go out to work. Sometimes he'll go somewhere, I don't know for how long, for the day, and leave her at home without any way to get around. She is in charge of all of the grocery shopping and everything. She does literally everything, and he leaves her with no car. She can't leave, she can't go anywhere. And I understand that in some instances that's fine. Some people only have one car. That's fair enough. Not everyone can afford a car, and it's not meant to be. It's not a statement of I'm going out and leaving you here and you can't go anywhere. However, when you are in this position where you could buy the most expensive car you could possibly get and it would just be another fucking Tuesday, it sends a message. If you have the money to buy a car and you are saying no, you're not allowed your own car, you aren't allowed to go out when I'm not here, it's being done deliberately. It is being done on purpose to say you can't go anywhere where I don't know who you are. You have to be where I know you are at all times, and you have to be at home when I'm not. And she just has to go along with it. This has become her entire life. She has to stick with it. She has to deal with it. She doesn't get any opinion on anything. All she does is look after her kids, run herself completely to death, and have more kids where she's not even allowed to have an epidural to give birth. Daniel is very obviously very self-centered and thinks that he is the center of the universe and everything he says is the most important thing in the entire world. And the interviewer, the writer of this article, really, really got that about him. And my favorite thing about this article is that, the writer of it was as fed up and frustrated as all of us are. And that was written into the article, I think, in a very good way of she was fed up of him interrupting and of this woman not having any peace. She was either being interrupted by her husband or by her children at any point. She was never allowed to be alone. And then at some point, you know, we hit the middle of the day, which meant lunchtime. And obviously, Hannah has to cook that. She has to make lunch. It's her interview. This interview was meant to be one-on-one, just Hannah and the interviewer. That's all this was meant to be. But it's lunchtime. And so obviously she has to leave to make lunch, which means Daniel comes in and Daniel gets to spend time with the interviewer because he can't make lunch for children. He can't make sandwiches. He's a man. That's not his job. It doesn't matter that Hannah is doing this really big, important thing for herself and for her career. No. That's not important. What's important is that you have to make sandwiches now, babe, because it's lunchtime, the kids are hungry, and I'm hungry, and I don't know how to make sandwiches. So, like, that's on you. I'll take over and keep the interviewer busy. And, you know, he was really happy about this because it meant he could give this interviewer a tour of the farm that they did not ask for, nor did they care about. But I love the way they wrote this paragraph, right? I'm just going to read it because it's so funny to me. Daniel wants to take me to see the new dairy farm building while Neilman goes into the house to make lunch for the kiddos. We stop at an irrigation ditch, which he explains. The offices, which he explains. The milking stations, which he explains. I check my watch, feeling edgy. I want to talk to Neilman. Just one more stop, he says. Neilman calls him. Okay, he says to her. We're just heading your way, he adds, driving in the opposite direction out into the fields to show me another ditch. And I just love how fed up she is. And I just like, he explained to me how everything worked. I didn't ask. I didn't care. I know what these things are. You don't need to tell me what an office is or what you do in an office. You don't need to tell me what a dairy cow is. I fucking know. Like, he stood there and fucking mansplained everything. And then lied to his wife and was like, we're heading back now, don't worry. And just took them to show them another fucking ditch. Like, bro, none of this is important right now. This isn't about you. This has never been about you. This was your wife's day. And you haven't given a single fuck. No, not even a little bit. The absolute lack of like mutual care in this relationship, it's so upsetting. Like the fact that he does just view her as an incubator, as just someone to like pump out kids and feed him. And that's really it. That's all she is. And she clearly, you know, loves and cares so much, or at least she feels obligated and a duty and tells herself that she loves and cares so much because she's lost everything else. You know, one of the biggest things of abuse is isolation, and he forced her to isolate herself literally to the biggest degree. He brought her out into the middle of the farm where she doesn't know anyone, didn't give her a mode of transport so she can't go anywhere without him, and he forced her to give up everything she'd ever known in her entire life. So she is completely dependent on him. Completely, entirely dependent on him. And like, sure, she makes her own money now, but it's through content that is because of being married to him, and it's through the farm that they have together that I'm sure his name is the one that's on the lease, not hers. Like, she can't do anything, you know? And now there's 8 kids too. Like, it would be, she can't leave. She is trapped. And I'm sure she's telling herself that this is where she wants to be, even if she is absolutely miserable and collapsing every other day. And like, this is where, you know, the other issue of this content comes into play is the fact that she has millions and millions of followers and gets thousands of comments from people being like, wow, why isn't this my life? Wow, I want this to be my life. This is incredible. You are incredible. You are doing so good. I wish this was me. This is what I want. And like completely just validating her situation and telling her how lucky she is to be there. And I will say, she is fucking incredible. She is so incredible. Being able to do all of this and like still and keep going, that is incredible. It doesn't make it okay. It doesn't make it okay. And I know she obviously doesn't post her collapsing and how like her bad days online, which means that obviously these people are viewing this as something that is so good and as something that is ideal and something to strive for. And that's bad in the 2 ways of, one, she is being told daily by thousands of people that she should be happy, that she's very lucky, that she has won at life. She got to marry a billionaire. She gets to just do nothing all day. She just has to look after her husband, keep her kids looked after and fed. That's all she has to do. What a fun, easy little life she has. She is so lucky She should be the happiest person in the world. That's obviously incredibly damaging to hear when you're in a relationship that is literally fucking killing you. And then on the other hand, it's also, you know, showing this to millions of people who think that that's what this is. They think this is something to strive for. They think this is something that looks incredible and brilliant and fun, and it's something that they want. Men see it and are like, wow, I want a wife like this. Women see it and they're like, wow, I want a life like this. And it can lead into a lot of women being trapped in relationships where they are reliant on people such as this. And they can all look different, but you know, that's the problem with trad wife content in general, is that like people see it as this ideal life because they only see the best parts of it, and they typically only see it from people who are very rich. And so they see this idea and they strive to just marry a man and live a simple life. And it doesn't go like that a lot of the time. A lot of the time it does end up being just like you are trapped. You are reliant on a man. You have no way of supporting yourself. You have no way of leaving even if you want to. And that is so, so dangerous. And I understand why people strive for this and why it is something that people want now. You know, we had like, it's like the anti-girl boss, you know, because we live in this current world where everything is so expensive. It is exhausting, the amount we have to do to look after ourselves. We are expected to work ourselves to death, and it's fucking hard. So you see someone who just gets to like stay at home and they get to spend their time cooking and looking after their kids and like being supported, and they don't have to go and work at a corporation every day. A lot of people are of course going to be like, oh, that looks so good. That looks so much better. I don't have to work myself to death. When actually that is still happening. That's just not what you see. And there is also the layer of just like being trapped and like not having your own life and having zero independence at all. No friends, nothing. You are a wife and that is your life. But people don't get that. That's not how it's depicted. And that is so dangerous. With Hannah, the only thing she has that is any sense of resemblance to her old life and what she used to do and what she wanted to do is that she does beauty pageants. She competes in Mrs. Utah and then recently Mrs. World. And she did this because her sister said, hey, I'm going to compete in this pageant. I thought that we could do it together. And she asked just so Hannah could take a bit of a break and have a space. And I think that that is a very lovely thing to offer and to do because, you know, that she grew up doing those and it's something that she enjoys doing and it is just a piece of the life that she wanted to do. However, it's incredibly impractical given the life that she does live, and it means that she gave birth, I think back in January, and then had a pageant 2 weeks later. She gave birth and was bedridden and bleeding and sick for like 10 days and then had to get on a flight with all of her kids and compete in a pageant in Vegas. It meant during the pregnancy, she had to be like working out and keeping it so like she would bounce back after giving birth so she could compete in this pageant. And that is incredible that she was able to do that. The fact that she was able to commit to that and do that shows that, like, you know, this was something she genuinely very much cared about. It is something that she absolutely could have dropped out of if she wanted to. It's the one thing that belongs to her and her alone. It's the one thing that she is doing that is her choice, that resembles the life that she used to have. And I think it's really lovely that her sister offered that and that she was able to do it. But it's so fucking shit that, you know, she was pregnant straight up leading into it because, you know, of course Mormons don't believe in birth control or anything, and that she almost wasn't able to go, and the amount she has to overwork herself to do it and to make it happen, the amount she has to do just to be able to do one thing that she likes doing is so devastating. And, you know, initially I saw this video before I read any of this many months ago, back when it happened. I saw her trying on her dress for her pageant and I was like, Jesus Christ, what is going on? Why is she doing this? What is happening? And I was like being a little bit judgmental about it because I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? And then finding out all of this information and realizing why she's doing it and why it's so important, I just kind of wish that, you know, she was allowed to get childcare and like just leave her family alone for a few days and go to this pageant by herself, But obviously they're not allowed to bring in childcare, and she has to look after her kids at all time, and that includes traveling the country for a beauty pageant, obviously. You know, she puts her kids in ballet. Her kids play sports and do ballet. And I find it lovely that, you know, she is able to share her passion through her kids. But I also know that how some parents get of like, they weren't able to do their dreams, so they pass their dreams on to their kids. But I don't know how it works in this household. I'm glad the kids get to do ballet. I hope that they enjoy it. And I hope that, you know, they are able to grow up and make their own choices. Here's the other problem with having 8 kids when your husband does very little look after them and you have to do literally everything, is that they have their own little ecosystem. Because there's so many of them, they look after each other. So, you know, they can be self-sufficient at times. And this is such a problem for everyone that has a lot of kids, is they just pop kids out and then they get to a certain age and you're like, great, the older ones can look after the little ones. That's so much less work for me. The more kids you have, the less work it is, because they just look after each other. And that is not an okay way to have kids either. And I understand in this situation, there's no other choice. It's impossible to like thoroughly look after 8 kids with all of your attention while you have to do literally everything else. But that is why it would be really helpful if she was allowed help. Like if she was allowed to get in like a nanny to help look after the younger ones or to help look after the older ones or whatever. Just having a helping hand. Like, I like that I said get in a nanny. Get the fucking dad to come in and do shit. I don't like, it's raising your kids to have these expectations and to like have the weight of their siblings on their shoulders is never okay. It's better to have less kids and give them your full attention, is basically what I'm trying to get at. And I don't think this is her fault. I don't think she has really a say in literally anything. She is doing the absolute most she can. I do not want her to do anything more than what she is doing. I actually need her to do a lot less. I need her to do a lot less. I need her husband to do a lot more. Preferably, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go dig a ditch and we're gonna go kill a man. That's what I think should happen. I will back you up in court, honey. Like, there are so many relationships like this, you know? It's so upsetting that this is not a one-off case. This is a rare case in the sense that there aren't that many, like, billionaires, but there is enough rich people. And obviously this happens outside of rich people as well. There are so many relationships that look like this. There's so many people who are stuck in these situations that they cannot get out of. And, you know, it's this thing of like, I keep using the word stuck and trapped. And I know that there are so many people who follow them, who will read this article, who maybe will watch this and say, you know, she's an adult. She has a choice. She can leave him if she wants. And I've already said why she can't, but there are other reasons as to why she won't as well. It's not even entirely about being dependent on him. Like I said, she has money. She has the means to leave if she really, really wanted to. However, I don't think people understand how hard it is to acknowledge to yourself that you are in a relationship that is unhealthy. It is so hard to acknowledge to yourself and to admit that the relationship you are in is abusive. To admit that you are being abused is one of the hardest things to do ever. It is so much easier to become pliant. It is so much easier to just stop having boundaries altogether and to just break than it is to admit that you are being abused. The thing is with like boundaries, right? And this is why it started straight at the beginning. When your boundaries are crossed enough times, you just stop having them, because having your boundaries disrespected hurts, especially when it's by someone you love. Having those boundaries disrespected is one of the most painful and horrible things, but it's really hard to admit that's what happens. So you tell yourself you consented to that. You're like, oh, I must have given mixed signals. Oh, well, you know, I did this in the end. Oh, well, I asked for it. And then after a few times, your boundaries kind of get pushed, and then you just drop them completely, because after a few times it hurts too much. You have those boundaries crossed too many times that the easiest thing to do is to just get rid of them completely. There are no more boundaries. You can do what you want. You can say what you want. I will do whatever you want, because fighting hurts. It's easier to just say yes than to have a no disrespected. Having your consent taken from you is the worst thing ever. Saying no and having it happen anyway, the worst thing ever. And that goes for all of this. Being made to leave Juilliard, being made to marry him, being made to do literally everything. At some point, she would have dropped that wall. She doesn't have boundaries anymore. There are no rules. He can do whatever the fuck he wants. He can ask her to do whatever the fuck he wants. She will do anything because it hurts too much otherwise. And that's exactly what abusers do. That's what we say when we say abusers break you down. They break you down in the way that they cut so you have no lines anymore. They can do what they want. And you just kind of accept that because that's just who you are now. That's what they've done to you. They have made you an extension of them. You don't really know what to do anymore. You don't have anything that is yours anymore. You are just an extension. You are a piece of clay that they are continually molding to fit into what they want you to be. And I'm not trying to say that she isn't her own person. She obviously is. But it is really hard to keep that and to, like, you know, she has emotions and feelings and can be thinking these things, but like to act on that and to try to separate herself from her husband is incredibly hard. I was in an abusive relationship for 2.5 years and I found it difficult to do that after 6 months. And that was on a much smaller scale too, in terms of like age and money and everything else. And that was hard enough for me. I can't imagine how hard it would be going through these very drastic, extreme things that were taken and that were changed. Like, it's not something she's going to be admitting to herself, you know? It takes years and years to admit to yourself that what is happening to you is wrong. And it can take even longer to find the strength to actually leave. And unfortunately, most people don't. But, you know, that doesn't mean we can't be hopeful. I very much do hope that, you know, maybe seeing the response to this article helps jog her along a little bit. I doubt it. I feel like, you know, her husband is going to be whispering in her ear and telling her why everyone else is lying and like they don't know what's really going on. Like, I'm sure there will be much more manipulation that occurs after this article had been released. Maybe one day she will find the strength to leave. Maybe it'll be when her kids are older. Who knows? I hope one day she is able to do that. This man, I'm not a violent person, but like I feel nothing but full on fucking rage in my body when I read this article and when I look at this man. So Ballerina Farms, this has been her. And, you know, it makes you think about all the other trad wives we see and the content that they put out, and knowing that a lot of their relationships maybe aren't exactly like this. This is a pretty extreme and drastic situation, but probably quite similar, you know? A lot of them are going to be having similar power dynamics and similar manipulation and trapping sort of techniques that exist within these relationships. We don't see everything online. You only see the aspects of like typically like women cooking and cleaning, and you don't actually see the relationship. And when you do, you're not actually seeing the depth of it. You are just seeing the very surface level, what people are putting out, which is never everything. So trad wife content is dangerous for many, many reasons. And we need to talk about it. And we need to educate people and make sure people make informed decisions. I think you should always have a career before you decide to be a stay-at-home mother or a housewife. You need to have career prospects. You need to have a way to be able to support yourself if it does end. I don't think there's anything wrong with choosing to stay home and look after your kids if that's what you want to do. You just need to know that you can stop doing that whenever you want to, and it would be okay. For Hannah, I am glad that this article was written. It's kind of worrying in the sense that like she spoke about this and did this article talking about all of this as though this is like totally normal to happen. And again, I think that occurs because, you know, she is telling herself that this is normal because she has millions of people validating that this is normal. Because if you hide it, then that's admitting that it's wrong. If you talk about it openly and you've convinced yourself so much that this is what a normal, healthy relationship looks like, then it's easier to allow yourself to stay. So I hope that things change. I don't think they will, and that's heartbreaking. It's devastating to look at this and know that there's nothing anyone can do other than herself. You have to be ready to leave a relationship like this. You can't just do it. No one can force you to. It has to be a choice that you make, and I hope that one day that choice is made and she does make that choice. And I hope that their children are okay and that Hannah helps to teach them to not get into a relationship like this and to follow their dreams. I don't know how that is possible to be taught, but in this situation, but you know, maybe. Yeah, this has been Ballerina Farms, and my heart is broken, as I am sure many of yours are too. This happens far too often, and it needs to stop. I know we can't really do anything about it other than be sort of informed so it doesn't happen to us. And so to that I say, have boundaries, enforce boundaries. If someone disrespects your boundaries once, leave before it's too late. Because once it happens more than that, it's really fucking hard to get out, and it's easier to change your boundaries than it is to leave. Admitting you've been hurt is very, very difficult and can take years to do. It is so easy to fall and so hard to pull yourself out. If you are even remotely suspicious that your relationship is controlling or abusive, leave. If that's even a thought in your brain, if you have a thought of even like, is this okay? It's not. It's not. You don't have to check if other people think it's okay. If it is not okay for you, it is not okay. We all have different boundaries. We all have different tolerances. If it is hurting you, that is enough. Doesn't matter if it will hurt anyone else. And if you tell someone, this is hurting me, and they say, that's stupid, this wouldn't hurt me, leave. That is them disrespecting your boundaries. That is them willingly hurting you and belittling you and getting you to submit to them and think of yourself littly and as them as better than you. It's not okay. Never ever okay. Don't let people talk to you like that. Leave before it is too late. Abusers pull you in, and it's really hard to get out. Please look out for warning signs. Do not let people cross your boundaries. Do not waver. I know it is hard to leave. If you are in deep, I can't tell you to just get out. I will encourage you to get help and to take that time and to take that step for yourself. If you are just meeting someone, if you're just getting into a relationship and people are disrespecting your boundaries, if they are belittling you, if they, are pushing you to do things that you don't want to do, they're not going to change. It's not worth staying. Don't even give them a warning. Just leave. You will find someone better. And even if you don't, that's fine. It is better to be alone than it is to be with someone who disrespects your boundaries. Now that we've gotten that good chat out of the way, I hope that, this video was informative. I hope we learned a little bit. I hope this was a good reminder that, everything online is a front, that people aren't posting 100%, and that, be careful who you support and think things through before you interact with people. And Hannah, I know you're not watching this, but me, and I'm sure hundreds of thousands, millions maybe, of other women are completely at your side, and we will defend you in any action you plan to take against this man, be it divorce or something much more drastic. I am on your side. Yeah, so thank you for watching. Please don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I upload videos every few days, and I would love to see you again. A massive thank you to my Sprout and Above patrons whose names are up on the screen right now. I appreciate you greatly. And a huge, huge thank you to my Kiwi Cat patrons. Michaela, Natasha, Lady Nutbar, Mr. Noodle, Radsack, Knitting Menace, Samuel, Chris, Elias, Danielle, Eldo, Jessica, Ikazel, Mandy, Josh, and Bobby. I love and appreciate you so, so much. Thank you so much for joining. If anyone else would like to become a patron, you go to patreon.com/savvycat or click the top link in the description. For as little as £1 a month, you get my videos very early. I currently have all my videos from now up until October uploaded. So if you're interested in just watching a ton of my videos, go do that. It's only £1 a month. And then for £3 and up, you get extra stuff such as outtakes, bonus mini podcasts, live streams, vlogs, and more. I'm going to South America for 10 weeks and I will be uploading travel vlogs over on Patreon. So if you're interested and want to follow along I believe I'm going to 8 countries, which is insane. If you want to follow along with that, then come check that out over on Patreon. Yeah, don't forget to follow me on Instagram, The Queer Kiwi, and Twitter, That Queer Kiwi. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe. Keep fighting. I love you. Mwah. When you close your eyes.